Hello again and welcome back to Toilets to Titles. I'm Justin Stevens and I'm here with your Kansas City Chiefs preseason breakdown. This one's obviously pretty simple, pretty easy because the answer is yes, draft them all the time, everywhere. So it's the Kansas City Chiefs. What more can you say? But I will go a little bit more into detail about it as best I can, but most likely this is going to be a pretty quick show. Don't forget, you can catch us at Toilets to Titles on Twitter. Our co-host at Coach Sheps at Nate_Dirt19 and myself at JustinFF_. Also, if you're watching this, you're probably going to be watching it on Periscope or YouTube. You can also find our regular shows. This is just a bonus episode, but you can also catch our regular episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. Don't forget, when you are scrolling through our YouTube, check out all the other breakdowns that we have at the end of the show. I'm actually going to put two of them right over here that you can check out as this one is winding down, if you'd like. And I guess let's go ahead and get started. The fantasy studs. So the fantasy studs are pretty obvious. Pat Mahomes, if they're in a two-quarterback league, you're going to take him probably with one of the first 4 draft picks, possibly even over a guy like Lamar Jackson, because a lot of people see that regression coming for Lamar. We don't really see a whole lot of regression coming with Mahomes because he already kind of settled down a bit from the previous year, from 2018 into 2019, a little bit more into what we think we're going to see more of a consistent number-wise with Mahomes. So it kind of makes sense that you might want to take him over Jackson. For me personally, I still like Jackson because I want that explosive points where you could potentially have just astronomical numbers, which you can still get with Mahomes. He could still throw you 4 touchdowns and run one in. But I just feel like you're more likely to get that with Jackson. So Mahomes is still my QB2. So just something to consider. But in one quarterback leagues, you're still going to take Mahomes and Jackson probably a little too early, probably in the 3rd round. And I'm okay with that, I guess, because at least you know you're getting consistency. Personally, I would wait until the 4th, but they're already going to be gone. So in redrafts, I don't have a lot of them just for that reason, because I want to build up my running backs and my wide receivers. That's just a personal preference. But at least you know you're going to get steady points with Mahomes. So Kelsey. Travis Kelce, obviously, he's still the tight end number 1 overall, the guy that you need to be targeting if you're going to go early on tight end. Guys, I mean, his snap count was 94%, so 2nd in the league. So even at his age, and he's still not even really that old. He's 30 years old. So for a tight end, that's not aggressively old. Route participation, he was 1st in the league for tight ends and routes ran, targets, 2nd in deep targets, 1st in receiving yards, 1st in receptions, 1st in air yards, completed air yards. I mean, the list goes on and on. Obviously, 1st in fantasy points. And until he gets unseated, he still should be 1st on your tight end list. Don't get cute with it. Kittle's amazing, but we don't have as long of a track record with Kittle. Make Kelce your number 1. And if you got to settle for Kittle as number 2, then outstanding. You're still getting a crazy good tight end. The other one, obviously, Tyreek the Freak. Tyreek is still a consistently good wide receiver. I do know, obviously, he can be boom or bust at times, but fantasy points per target, he was 11th overall last season and 11th overall in fantasy points per game. So, and he even had the little hiccup with the injury and that sort of thing that slowed down a couple of his games, but he can be a bit boom or bust at times. So it's not like I'm telling you that he's a consistent player, but he is consistently in the double-digit marks. Only looks like 2 games last season where he didn't score in double digits in PPR. And I believe, one of them was week 1 when he got hurt. So, and he was out for 4 weeks after that. So he's still going to be a consistent, at least wide receiver 2. You're drafting him as a wide receiver 1. I get that, but he's going to have those big boom games. It helps put him over the top. And I think that with age will come consistency. So who knows? We might see the most consistent Tyreek that we've seen during the course of his career. So next is possibly Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I put him down on the list as a possible, but guys, I'm not all in on Clyde like a lot of people are. I heard on the fantasy footballers that they were even considering taking him as the 5th overall running back, thinking that he would be a top 5 running back, and I'm just not that sold on him, and I'll tell you why. I compared him to Damian Williams' numbers. Okay, just bear with me. I know a lot of people's going to say, well, Damian Williams sucks. Well, he did suck when he played for Miami, and he played pretty well for Kansas City. And a lot of people think that if Damian Williams can play that well, then clearly Clyde Edwards-Helaire can play that well in the same offense, right? Well, here's the numbers I found. Damian Williams coming out of college had a 4.45 40. I'm guessing as age has gone by, that number's probably a little bit worse. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a 4.6, so a full 0.15 behind. That's big in the 40 time. His speed score for Damian Williams was 113.2. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is only 92.5. The burst score was very similar, but also Damian Williams is 5'11", 222 pounds, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is 5'7", 207 pounds. So, and Damian Williams is known to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield too. So we can't use that smaller frame as an excuse for saying that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be a better receiver out of the backfield either. I'm not saying that that CEH is going to be bad. I'm not saying that at all. I do think he's going to be good because I think anybody can be good in this offense. Another comparison is Kareem Hunt, who had very similar scores to Clyde Edwards-Helaire across the board, except Kareem Hunt is still 3 inches taller and about 10 pounds heavier. So he's a little bigger that way too, but he also plays a lot faster on the field than what his 40 time shows. And maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire will too. I know he did in college, but that was also college, and he was a big dog in a small pool. Now he's the small dog in the big pool. And I get that it's supposed to be fish in that analogy, but I get things mixed up. So let's see. So in 2018, though, Kareem Hunt was 8th in fantasy points per game in that offense, 8th overall running back, which is really good, right? Very good. But do we really think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is Kareem Hunt, right? And even if he is, that's 8th. That's not top 5. And Damian Williams, who, again, tested out better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming out of college all the way across the board, finished 22nd overall in points per game last season. Now, I don't think he'll do that bad, but I think we're going to see somewhere in between. I think that logic would tell us he's going to be a low-end RB1, maybe a high-end RB2. I'm going to draft him as a low-end RB1, which means I'm not going to get him because so many drafts right now have him going so much higher right now. As a matter of fact, his ADP right now is at right around the 6th or 7th overall pick in the first round, and that's just way too high for me. Because here's the issue with that. You're drafting a rookie running back 6th or 7th overall. That means he has to perform at that level in order for you to get that value in return. So if you look at it this way, if you drafted Michael Thomas there, you know you're getting very high wide receiver numbers from Michael Thomas. Even if it's not wide receiver 1, it's going to be 3 or better, right? And if you're drafting I don't know, another good running back that's fallen in that area, Dalvin Cook. If he doesn't hold out, he stays healthy, you're guaranteed to get top 10, top 6 running back points for Dalvin Cook. You're not guaranteed to get that with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We haven't seen it on the field yet. So just something to consider. So next, we're going to go to stay tuned for breakouts. So my breakout is Mecole Hardman, and I say that kind of hesitantly with a bit of a cringe. Mecole Hardman is a boomer bust kind of guy. I don't think that I can say that CEH is going to be the breakout guy because we just talked about him, and if you're going to draft him in the 1st or 2nd round, then you already kind of consider him a breakout. So it's kind of hard to say that a 1st or 2nd round guy is going to break out his rookie year. So, and maybe he does, and he proves me wrong here. But again, I just think that he's a low end RB1. So I'm going to go with Mecole Hardman here. But But McCole Hardman was first in yards per reception, first in quarterback rating when targeted. So that means anytime that he was targeted as a wide receiver, his quarterback's rating was first overall in the league compared to any other wide receivers out there in the league when they were targeted by their quarterback. If that doesn't make sense, shoot a comment down below and I'll explain it a little bit more in detail. I know a lot of times I don't explain things the greatest. Let's see. He was also first in fantasy points when targeted. So that means that when Mahomes threw him the ball, he was first in fantasy points overall in the season. So, or per target, he was first. So he has the talent. He is slowly starting to build a rapport. He only had 26 receptions last season. So that's a bit concerning for him to be boom or bust, only get 26 receptions. But hopefully they can open up that offense a little bit better, and that extra year under his belt, the extra year of experience, he can come around. He is a potential breakdown because right now his ADP is around 133. So that means you're drafting him in like the 11th or 12th round, like early 12th round to get him. So if you draft him there and he doesn't pan out, you're not out much. So that's why I have him as a breakout candidate. And beware of letdown. None. There's no letdowns in this offense, even CEH, because like I said, you draft him with the 5th or 6th overall pick, you're most likely still going to get low-end RB1 numbers. At least you got your guy. That's not that big of a letdown. It's just like anything else. Saquon Barkley, Zeke Elliott, Christian McCaffrey. You draft them early. Somebody has to go first, right? If he ends up, let's say Christian McCaffrey ends up having a rough season, suffers an injury, whatever, ends up being the RB10 overall. You still got an RB1 in fantasy football, so it's not that big of a letdown. If I had to choose one, obviously I'd say Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but again, that's only because you have to draft them so high, and there's so much unknown there. But we have seen rookies work. We have seen rookie running backs do their thing in the NFL and succeed. So it's very possible that we're going to see it. Mr. Reliable, obviously, it's the obvious guys. It's Pat Mahomes. It's Tyreek. It's Travis Kelce. And it might even be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like I said, there's nothing new there. That segment goes real quick. Others to consider is Sammy Watkins. And the reason I put Sammy Watkins down here is because when he's healthy, he's actually a really productive wide receiver. Week 1 is going to be a shootout, in my opinion, with the Texans. I think it's going to be a high-scoring, high-flying game. It's going to be one to watch. And Sammy could be healthy. I mean, it's week 1, so he could. Who knows? But if he's healthy right now, he's being drafted. Let's see where Sammy's being drafted. I thought I had that one pulled up. He's being drafted at around 164. So that's probably about the 14th, 15th round if I'm doing the quick math right. So he's like really late. In some drafts, he's your last round pick, and you might get a really good week 1 out of him and hopefully be able to trade him off and get something out of him. And if not, again, he's not Mr. Reliable, that's for sure. Just somebody else to consider. Darrell Williams is another guy to consider because when he was given a chance last season, he did really well to start the season. I got to pull up here. Weeks 3 and 4, he was the RB14 and RB12 overall. So he performed really well. Then he had the bye week, and then he came back from the bye, and Damian Williams was back to the starting role again, and he was just relegated to backup duties. Later on in the season, they started giving him more touches when they were, kind of had the playoffs locked in, and he was getting more fourth quarter work and that sort of thing. And he is efficient. He is productive. So if he's given a chance, he may have the opportunity to push Clyde Edwards-Helaire a bit. As far as efficiency goes, his production premium was 13 overall in the league. So like I said, he isn't exactly inefficient. Like he has the ability to run the football, especially in that offense. So he is something to consider. I'm not saying that you need to draft him at all, just like I wouldn't draft Darwin Thompson, but that's another guy to watch. Darwin Thompson is going to be the third down guy there. I'm sorry, I can't say he's going to be the third down guy. He potentially could be the third down guy, so it's somebody to watch for because let's say even if Clyde Edwards-Helaire can perform at that high level as a rookie, then the Kansas City Chiefs will need one of these other two guys to step in and fill that role of backup guy, the change of pace guy, whatever, to kind of give Clyde Edwards some breather from time to time. And it might be somebody that could have some standalone value by the end of the season. So keep an eye on both of them the first couple of weeks and see how they're utilized. Maybe it's somebody to pick up later on. Let's see. I also have IDP guys to watch for. I wrote down Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a defensive tackle. Typically, I'm not going to say anything about defensive tackles because a lot of times in fantasy football, defensive tackles aren't guys you typically want to target. But in this case, at the defensive tackle position, mind you, he had 23 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 13 assisted tackles, 9 sacks from a defensive tackle, which is huge, and 4 pass defense. Guys, these are really big numbers for a defensive tackle. And if the scoring is done more equally in your IDP leagues, like some are, like in one league that I'm in, he scored double digits in 8 out of 13 games. If it's like an equalized scoring system where defensive tackles get more for tackles since they don't get as many tackles traditionally, but he does get a lot of tackles. So he had one game that was in the 20s and one game in the 30s for a defensive tackle. So even in leagues that don't have equalized scoring, you're going to get this guy really late because defensive tackles go really late. So bump him up a few rounds, get a secured guy at the position, a start him and forget him kind of guy at that position. I also have Tyrann Mathieu. He's a solid double-digit safety. We already know he's going to be the safety. We know he's the guy. He's been the guy. He's consistent. He's a guy that you want to keep in there. As long as he stays healthy, you're good to go. And then I asked Nate if there were any IDP guys that he wanted to mention, and he mentioned Charvarius Ward. And then I asked him what he wanted me to say about him because I don't know defensive guys. We've already gone over this, but Nate evidently has done his research on this guy. He said that he is a monster. He was an undrafted free agent in 2018. He's a tackling machine. And then he also went on to say that he had 56 solo tackles as a cornerback last season, which I do know that is a lot of tackles for a cornerback, and that he's only going to get better. So somebody to consider right there. I believe that is all I have for you guys on the Kansas City Chiefs. I guess this did go a little longer than I expected, but sometimes I get carried away when I get passionate about somebody, and I'm just real passionate about Clyde Edwards-Helaire being overdrafted. So please be cautious with that. But that's all I got for you guys today. And we'll be coming at you in the morning, actually, at least myself, probably John, and maybe possibly Nate if we're lucky. And we're going to give you guys a breakdown of the Frankenstank League, the draft that we did a few weeks ago. So I'm really excited about that as well. But this will be dropping first, hopefully, before you guys see that. But until then, peace out.